What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Mariners Forever. Dan Viennes, Michael Thompson with you. As we record this, the Mariners have returned home. They open a homestand against the Kansas City Royals and then the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are suddenly hot. That just kind of seems to be the way things are going for the Mariners this year. But so far, so good. 5-1 lead in the fifth inning. A couple of home runs from Randy Arozarena on a gorgeous, gorgeous day back in Seattle to finish out June. Let's do this, Michael, just to start off with. Let's kind of recap where things stand in the wild card race. The Mariners, as we sit here today, firmly in that third spot in the wild card, now 6.5 games out of first place. Does it feel like that needs to be the focus now? That not that they can't get back in the race, obviously. And then just today, news that Pena is going to have to go on the injured list for Houston. They still don't have Alvarez back, and they just haven't stubbed their toe yet. They haven't had a slump yet. They haven't had a 3-7 10-game stretch yet. Should we just kind of set that to the side for now and focus on the wild card chase the way this team is going?
I think if the Houston Astros are going to win 19 games a month, then that's probably going to have to be the situation that the Mariners find themselves in. I know we all hate to say it, but the Astros are just an absolute machine. And even without Yordan, 19 wins this month. They just took it to the Chicago Cubs. They look like one of the hottest teams, if not the hottest team in baseball. 6.5. It feels almost like 12.5 right now, the way things are going, because honestly, we're up 2 games on the Los Angeles Angels for the final wild card spot. Let that sink in, huh?
The Rangers are just a couple of games back too. It's like just when you think you've dispatched those guys and put them in your rearview mirror. But I think that just kind of speaks to the level of quality of play in all of baseball. It's one of those years where it only seems like there's like 4 really good, legit good teams. Everyone else battling it out. Here's what I'll say about it. I'm not so sure it's a bad thing. And here's what I mean by that. Like, just keep doing what you're doing, win series, try to improve the roster in the next 4 weeks if you can, and have the wild card be the focus, and not that you're not going to try to win the division, obviously, right? But it in my mind, it doesn't really change a whole lot for a couple of reasons. If they get into the playoffs, it means that to some level they'll have played well over the next 3 months. And then I would also assume that the pitching's relatively healthy and performing well. And once you get into the tournament, like the Mariners can match up with anyone if that pitching gets going. And so what if you're the third wild card and you have to go on the road? They hit better on the road anyway. And that's when it starts to get cold again at T-Mobile and the ball doesn't carry as well. So like, I'm fine with the wild card just as long as they get in. Which I guess this wasn't on the rundown. I hadn't planned to ask you this, but just because I think this will be a theme as the year goes along. Is that a disappointment in your eyes? If they don't make the playoffs, it is. And then I think we're talking about some guys' job security. But if they just make the wild card and don't win the division, is that a disappointing year?
I would say no in terms of Jerry and Justin keeping their jobs and Dan having a vote of confidence going into his second full season. Now, if they get that 6 wild card spot, and let's say you go to Houston or you go to the Bronx and it's a quick 1-2 and you're out, like you don't even win a game, it's almost like, man, what was all that for? Right. And I think a great example of that is the Houston Astros. They came back and they won the AL West last year. And winning the West, you win the banner, right? You get the champagne. Not that the Mariners wouldn't do champagne if they made the playoffs, but I mean, the Tigers, they were the 3 seed, and the Tigers just took it to them in 2 straight games in your own home ballpark. Like, it's super deflating. And it's kind of what made all of us think, oh, this is it. They're finally done. And now you look up and you're 6.5 games back. Yeah. But no, I mean, the goal is to make the playoffs, right? Everything that Jerry and Justin have built historically shows that they're one of the most consistently good teams in all of baseball. Pretty much since 2021, which might have been, that year was kind of that beginning year, felt like a year early. And now everything feels like it's a little bit late. Like, where is our next playoffs? Where's our next division title? Where's our first World Series appearance type of thing? And I think we all kind of thought after 2022, 2023, and 2024 were going to be those next steps. And now here you are, and like we have a borderline MVP candidate, like the MVP favorite if he was in any era other than Judge and Ohtani right now. And we're barely 500, we're 43 and 40. And it kind of just feels like we're just hanging on for dear life. Like, I think a good example of that is kind of the state of where we are, where I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I want to make the playoffs, obviously. But man, do we really need to go to extra innings 3 straight times against a Texas Rangers team that really feels like everything was about 2023? They got it done, and all these guys are ready just to cash out. Essentially, that's how I feel the Rangers are between DeGrom and Simeon and Seager and even Bochy tags. It just feels like they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and now they're coasting. And whereas you see the Astros are winning 2 out of 3 against the Cubs, and that is a legitimate World Series potential matchup right now. And the Astros look like the better team. And so I think right now, 83 games in, we're now 84. Hopefully we get a win tonight. I think, right, like you said, it's just win series. And you'd like to look better than what we have looked in these series wins that we had. But at the end of the day, we are winning series at a somewhat consistent rate. We had that rough patch with the offense. It should pick up hopefully in time. We see the Astros next, which I know we talked about that 2 episodes ago. We're going to see the Astros here in Seattle for a big series right after the All-Star break. That is when you reassess where you're at in terms of chasing this division, and also where you're at with the trade deadline, which again, we have talked about. This schedule is not looking favorable, but you just got to take what you got, and it's a great way to see where you truly are as a franchise. The Astros brought the Cubs into Houston, kicked the crap out of them 2 out of 3 games. They should feel like they can go out and make some moves, and they're still a World Series threat. Seattle needs to earn that right.
The road trip they just finished up, a 10-gamer, 6-4. It's never a bad thing to come back with a winning road trip. It's just that the last 2 games in Minnesota, they just couldn't get any runs going. They lose low-scoring games. They have the extra inning game that they dropped in Texas that they felt like they had the lead in that. They felt like that was one they should have closed off. It's some weird bullpen manipulations of management near the end of apparently it's okay for Carlos Vargas to pitch 4 days in a row, but Andres Munoz can't go a 3rd day. They escaped that, but they had to, it got tied up. They had to come back and win again. It is, and the Texas thing is interesting to me. I think there's something to be said for going all in, which they did, and it got them a World Series. Mm-hmm. But to what cost? They look like an aging team now, where a lot of those commitments they made to older players, spending big money, certainly like the Max Scherzer thing didn't work out. Jacob deGrom kind of looks like his old self. This year he's been effective at least for them, but you never know if he's going to be able to stay healthy for the whole season. Mm-hmm. Marcus Semien is a shell of himself. I do just think there's a statement to be made there about the cost of going all in like they did without a good farm system to back them up, because the farm is not very good down there. Just a couple things just to run down for those of you watching. We are going to get to we're going to talk about some new names as potential trade targets between now and the 31st of July. So not probably, as you're watching this, it'll be the 1st of July. So we are in the final month before the trade deadline. Plus we have, a lot of stuff coming up this month, right? We got the All-Star game, the trade,
the draft,
certainly the draft with the Mariners with the 3rd pick, the 35th,
the most futures game.
Futures game was announced today. 3 Mariners, only one other team in baseball has 3 prospects in this game. Harry Ford, Laz Montes, and Jurangelo St. It's kind of cool. The 3rd appearance for Harry Ford. I don't know that many guys can say that. Usually if you've been in 2 futures games, you get elevated. That's a great segue into another point that we have on the rundown. So this was an interesting week for Harry Ford, right? I mean, the guy's just been destroying AAA pitching since the first month. We've talked already at length on this show about how there just isn't really a fit on the roster for him at the moment, unless you're committed to DHing him 3 to 4 times a week, in addition to maybe a couple times behind the plate to spell Cal, because you don't want to call a guy up and not develop him and not let him see big league pitching, and not give yourselves an opportunity to take advantage of a hot bat. Mitch Garver gets hit in the face or in the neck, right? It doesn't look good in the moment. It has to be pulled from the game. The Rainiers just happened to be in Texas at that time. So he joins the club the next day. Everyone gets excited. We're going to see Harry Ford now. Nope, not so fast. Garver felt better. Ford was on the taxi squad. And I don't even know if he's been sent back yet, actually, as we record this. But it would make sense that he is, because now Mitch Garver is not only healthy, hit a huge home run yesterday in Texas. He's been better lately. He's been really good with runners in scoring position. And in particular, he's been good with runners in scoring position, 2 outs. Now, he failed in that situation earlier today, but he's hitting about 345 in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just the looking down the dugout and seeing the kid, but he's contributed in other ways too. He had a big game last week, had 2 home runs in a game. Does it feel like Mitch Garver might have saved his roster spot, at least for a little while?
Well, yeah. And then didn't he catch 12 innings yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Like in a game that, man, again, we're talking, it's only halfway in the season, but like, you want to walk out of Texas with that series win. You want to make the Rangers feel like, man, now we lost the tiebreaker to the Mariners. We lost the series at home. That kind of was one of those interesting late June, kind of a bigger series than normal. And to have Mitch Garver come back to the place where he was at his very best in that 2023 World Series run, and that home run he hit, it's so effortless when he really does get into it, man. That was, what was that, 440, 420, something like upper deck. It just got out in a hurry. The way he hits home runs in that stadium is unbelievable. Like, he makes it look like the Crawford boxes, and that place is cavernous. I think there was an article on Sports Illustrated just talking about how much that ballpark's affected the Rangers as a franchise. But yeah, pretty veteran style. Maybe gets hit in the neck and something snaps. Not sure what, but I think you nailed it. It's one of those things where you just kind of look down the aisle and you see, there's the guy. There's the guy everybody on social media wants. Everybody hates me on social media. He's talked about it last year. He's not impervious to social media and hearing what probably fans are yelling at him and stuff.
Right.
And yeah, one game, maybe that doesn't save the season, but he helped the Mariners win a series yesterday, and he probably bought himself another week, honestly. And if he has a good week, he probably buys himself another 2 weeks. And if he starts to look anything remotely like the guy that we thought we could get when we signed him last season, then all of a sudden, not just is this good for Mitch Garver and good for Cal Raleigh and having a true battery mate behind the plate, but also like it just creates another offensive, powerful dynamic for this team that desperately needs it. Like, I just feel like, again, we've talked about this. You're sitting waiting for Cal Raleigh to get you the power, or you get the night where Randy Arozarena looks like 2020 Randy Arozarena, and he's been amazing this year, very underrated. But like, it's just another bat. It kind of goes back to the trade deadline. This team is in desperate need for another all-star caliber bat, but they also still just need good players. And Mitch Garver has not been a good player since he's come to Seattle. And lately, in the last month, he's been actually a pretty good player.
There's a theory about Mitch Garver, and I saw it repeated again tonight after he hit the home run, that he's only good in odd-numbered years.
Yeah,
and when you pull up the stats, there's some validity.
It's creepy, yeah.
Right? If you just look at batting average, right? He's up to 227 this year, but he's been much better than that over the last week.
Yeah.
Last year, 172. The year before that, the year that got him paid, 270. With the home runs, really, we'll just focus on batting average because you can just see it. 227, 172, 270, 207, 256 in 2021, 167 in 2020, 273 in 2019. It is pretty remarkable. And if that's the way it plays out, hey, it's the last year of his deal. Give us your best, and then we'll move on. But I do think we get so enamored and we get so romanced by the allure of the young up and coming, the prospect, right? And what he could be. And we see a guy doing what Harry Ford's been doing for like 2.5 solid months down in Tacoma, and we think that could translate. And we look at our roster, we look at our lineup, and we say, hey, we need bats, right? So let's figure out a way to stick them in there. The best thing for this Mariners team and this Mariners lineup would be for Mitch Garver to find his stroke. I mean, that's option number one.
Yes.
The guys that you have getting hot, making those decisions at the deadline harder for the front office. That's a good problem to have. And I'll never, I always try to keep that in perspective, right? Because I get excited about prospects too.
Yes. Yeah, you need to lengthen your lineup. And when it comes to getting into October and succeeding in October, you want guys that have done it, guys that are not going to be overwhelmed by the moment, that are not going to struggle. Like, I would have loved to have had the veteran presence of a Mitch Garver on our playoff team in 2022, right? Like, people forget we went 19 innings without scoring a run, and it goes even a little bit farther if you go back to the game before and stuff. You just would have loved to have had that veteran presence to be there, like, hey guys, we can do this. We've been here before. And a guy that can just run into an off-speed pitch or a fastball and hit it a quarter mile. Like, that's what you just would love to see. And maybe that's all Mitch has been doing lately, but it looks like he's more comfortable. And hopefully this getting hit in the neck is not an injury that kind of affects him. And it's, again, I'm not trying to like joke about it, but maybe it is just a legitimate wake-up call with realizing how close he was to this being over in Seattle. And you never know. Maybe, obviously, a guy of his pedigree probably gets picked up and gets a shot. There's also a chance this is it, right? He's not a spring chicken and stuff. And it, when people get pushed into a corner, they kind of show you who they really are. And I thought it was pretty cool to see Mitch Garver bounce back and beat his old team to help the Mariners get a big series win.
It's a huge factor when players get to this point in their career that he knows as well as anyone that he's probably done getting multi-year deals.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like he said that because
exactly.
of his age and his injury history and his performance and how inconsistent it's been, he's going to be a 1-year contract guy for the rest of his career. So,
yep.
And we've seen it a million times, right? We see guys perform sometimes in contract years. It just sharpens your focus a little bit, changes your perspective a little bit. Maybe the pressure, you don't feel the pressure as much from fans and expectations because you're just going out there and trying to focus on the next pitch and do the best you can. But let's talk about, because we still look, even though we like what's been happening there, we like what Donovan Solano has been doing, and that seems to be carrying over. He's consistently still, it's like he's found his eye and he's found his stroke again. We like what Dom Canzone has done. He looks like a different hitter since he's come back up. Like, he has done the work and he's taken a step, as young players do sometimes. And that's exciting, not just for this year, but next year. But even if this team goes on a tear and tears up this homestand, which would be a great opportunity to do it against the Royals and the Pirates.
I love it.
We cannot take our eye off the ball and lose sight of the fact that they still need to add a bat to this lineup. If not 100%. Two, but I think for sure one, especially in light of the fact that we don't know what's going on with Jorge Polanco. Adam Jude reporting today that he went back and saw the specialist that worked on his knee, that it's not necessarily an aggravation of the earlier injury, or I'm sorry, aggravation is exactly the word of what it is, but it's not a complication from the procedure before. It's the fact that he twisted it on the bags at second base, I think the other day, and aggravated it. But it sounds like he's going to be good to go tomorrow. They got to make a decision on him. Like, is he in the lineup or is he out? And they can't if he is in the lineup, they can't let that impact what they do at the deadline either. So you and I put our heads together. We came up with some new names, guys that haven't been talked about as much as some other players. And let me start off. Let me do this first. Let me start off with one I came up with, because I'll tease this one a little bit. This is a guy that pretty much for every single season between about 2020 and 2024, when he signed a big extension with his current team, like, if I had $1 for every time Brian Reynolds was about to become a Mariner, right? Like, he was a primary trade target for all the traditional reasons. He was getting to where he was eligible for an extension. The Pirates are a cheap organization. They're not winning. Did they want to pay him? And he was a guy that seemed to fit. A guy that gets on base, has a little bit of pop, can hit from both sides of the plate. But then he signed the extension to stay in Pittsburgh. Well, now things have changed a little bit in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Right? They just seem to be an organization that's directionless. They just don't seem to ever get better, despite high draft picks and international signings and a good farm system. And Reynolds is down a little bit right now. And so maybe they wouldn't be interested in trading him because they'd be selling low on him, right? But this is the kind of player Brian Reynolds is. He's 30 years old now. He's a switch hitter, as I said. He's not a center fielder anymore. But he wouldn't have to be on this team. That was part of the appeal of him 3-4 years ago, as he was a legit center fielder. Got got off to the great start in his career. He was in the Rookie of the Year chase his rookie year, finished 11th in the MVP voting in 2021. That was his best year by far. He hit 302 with 24 home runs and 90 RBIs, and he could steal a couple bags for you as well. This year, he's hitting 239. His slash line's 239, 305, 400. Does have 10 home runs. His career slash line is 273, 347, 463. I'd give up a lot to get that slash line if I thought it was sustainable and there was a chance that he could continue it. He just turned 30. And so I would tend to believe that what we're seeing from him is more of just a scuffle, a struggle, a poor start. It happens to the best of them. He's a career 118 WRC plus right now as we record this today. He's at 93. But I was shocked when I looked at the contract. Just, off the top of my head, I knew they signed him to a long-term deal, and I thought, man, the money's probably prohibitive, right? He's signed through 2030 at a flat $13.3 million a year through 2030. And then there's a club option for 2031 for $2 million. To me, and the Pirates are kind of like the Cincinnati Bengals in Major League Baseball. Like they don't.
Yep. Great example.
They don't do the smart thing always. They don't trade guys when they should. They just don't manage their roster properly.
They have an LSU superstar.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's already talk this year about, among just
do you trade schemes?
Analysts, like, do you trade him and try to jumpstart this thing? Is Brian Reynolds appealing to you?
Yeah, he's super appealing. I think this has been a darling that you and I have talked about for years. When we started talking Seahawks and started talking Mariners, that was the guy you and I both wanted. I can't think of pretty much since 2021, he's been the guy we've wanted to go after. Just felt like a perfect complement to Julio Rodriguez. You could put him in the corner outfield, the switch hitter. I think from the left side, he was a really great fit for our ballpark hitting. I thought he could actually have a little bit more power and stuff here in T-Mobile.
Yeah, good.
And then and you look at his stats; they are the worst of his career. I think there's a lot of luck involved. You go look at his Baseball Savant page; that thing is red all around. It has to just be some unluckiness, some stuff going on there. But yeah, at the end of the day, you are right. His numbers are down, so that probably does lower his value, which in most cases, a smart baseball team, not trying to be disrespectful to the Pirates, but a smart baseball team will say, well, we're just going to wait till the offseason and we'll create a bigger 3-team package. We'll get more prospects because, man, a team like the Yankees would love his style in the short porch. They could cover him in the corner outfield and stuff like that. I think that's definitely a fit. But the Pirates aren't always that way, and they're very smart about their money and how much they don't have and how much they want to save. And so maybe if a trade does come along, that does make sense, where the Mariners say, or a team does say, we'll take all of that. Yeah. I think the Pirates would jump at that right away because he is 30, and you're talking about a guy that you're putting a lot of faith into his, as you mentioned, to his age 35 season. I do think his game does travel. I do think, or it will age gracefully is what I meant to say. And I do think he's the kind of guy that if you put him on a contending team for the first time in his life, I do think it allows and puts him in a much better spot to be successful. You put him somewhere in between Julio, Cal, and Randy Arozarena and JP Crawford. I just think you're going to see the best of Brian Reynolds. That's personally what I think. Now, will the Mariners make that financial commitment? It sucks to think that they wouldn't, because it really is only $13 million, which honestly, it reminds me a lot of like a Kyle Seager contract, like a good deal, a long-term deal. But like, I think even Kyle got more average annual value. And like, you think about it, Kyle's been out of baseball for what, 4 years now, coming on 5 years pretty soon. Like, it's just kind of crazy to think. I think I always would have assumed Brian Reynolds was a higher valued player, and that contract is so team friendly. I just kind of wonder. I just kind of wonder if what's the situation like, and there shouldn't be a reason why the Mariners don't jump on that, other than they don't feel like he's going to age well. I personally think his game shows someone that will age well, but maybe they don't.
Well, and look at it this way too. Just look at the roster today as we sit here. If you're worried about fitting in $13.3 million, Mitch Garver is making 9.5.
Yeah, most of that's right out the door. Yep.
Yep. And then I was looking to see, what are they paying Solano this year?
It's something moderate. Isn't it like 6 or 7?
Yeah, spot track's being weird. I can't pull up 2025. I'm looking at 2024. Yeah, but it was like $3 or $4 million, right? So I mean, there's the money right there. Those two guys aren't going to go.
Yeah, and next year's the last year of JP's deal, if I'm correct. It's the last year of Randy Rosarena's deal, if I'm correct. Like we have this nucleus that we're trying to see if we can get into the playoffs. We have a wave of prospects coming in that you can either use to trade to keep this core together, or kind of fade out. And maybe Brian does fit that mold of being both. Maybe he's a guy that you can come in to help this group for the next 2 years. And then when the rest of the prospects come in, he can kind of be that veteran presence as he fades into the back half of his contract.
Well, and if any of you watching are thinking, wait a minute, we have a bunch of outfielders, right? We just talked about how Randy's heating up again, and Dom Canzone is playing well again. Luke Raley's back; he can play the outfield. Yeah, and maybe we'll get Victor Robles back before the end of the season too. We all agree that Plan A at the deadline is to add a guy at the corners, or at a corner, both of them if you can. But in the event that you aren't able to get the right guy to play third or first for you, you just need to add the best bat that you can for the price you're willing to pay. And if that's in the outfield, you figure it out. You figure it out with the DH spot. If Polanco needs to go on the injured list at any point, you let guys compete, and whoever the hot hand is, and that's who you play, and then you figure it out after that. Plus, a guy like Canzone, even though we like what he's been doing, he's got an option. He can go back down. There is some flexibility to be had there. And maybe the answer is as simple as, Luke Raley plays more first base, but yeah. And it's Lars Nootbaar is another guy I was looking at in the same vein, kind of that also used to be connected to the Mariners seemingly every season. His situation's different in that he's got 2 ARB years left. So he's got some club control. It's funny to think that it would cost you more to acquire Lars Nootbaar. When you look at the numbers, you wouldn't think so, but because of control and what he costs, a little bit of a different story. But that's my feeling on, like, if an outfield bat's all you can do, then you figure it out, right?
Yeah. And Lars is just like he hasn't had a great year, but he's just been an energizer bunny. He's a spark plug, good clubhouse guy. Like on a great team, he's probably like your best utility fourth outfielder that you're probably putting in the game in the 7th inning of a playoff game, and you're hoping he can steal a base and make a big hit for you. And right now, what this team could use is, he's mostly been a left fielder, but I think he can play some right field. I believe he's played about 11 games this year in right field. You look on some metrics, he's not as good of a defender as he's been in years past. You look on Baseball Savant. I'm a big Baseball Savant guy. Defensively, he's been great this year. His speed is still there. I remember all the jokes about getting him so that way we could pair him with Ohtani back in the day because they were buddies from their WBC. But just another guy that he's been in the playoffs. He's experienced World Baseball Classic. He's experienced big games. Whereas, like, maybe you're not getting that experience from a Brian Reynolds who might be starving for that. Whereas a Lars Nootbaar has been in playoff games. He's been around Yadier Molina, Adam Wainwright, Albert Pujols. He's been around these guys, and it's just, he's not a superstar, but he's another good player that you need at the bottom third of your lineup.
Who do you like as a potential trade target, that maybe a guy that we haven't talked about a lot?
Yeah, I think the 2 names that one's kind of always attainable at the trade deadline, but definitely has some baggage. And then one is more of a bigger trade. But I keep looking at the Boston Red Sox, right? They had a great great run. Obviously, the Devers stuff came to an impasse, and they sent him out west, which helps the Mariners because the Red Sox we've seen lately, I believe they've lost 6 of 8 or 6 of 7. That's not a team that looks at the moment like it's going to be competing with us for a wild card spot. And the vibes are definitely not great in that ballpark. They're probably not great around the fan base and stuff with trading a top 25 hitter like Devers. So the question becomes, does a player like Jarren Duran become available? Jarren Duran was a top 10 player in baseball last year. That is probably the ceiling that we'll ever see from a Jarren Duran. Jarren Duran's having a rough year. However, I still think a lot of what he has is a lot of what Seattle could absolutely use. It's essentially, in my opinion, you're adding another potential Randy Arozarena type of guy, a guy that is a good outfielder. I wouldn't say a great outfielder, but his speed makes up for a lot of it. Just a decent hitter, great energy. Obviously, kind of became a star with the All-Star MVP and that massive home run he hit. But like, he's not the 9 WAR guy. That's not what you're trading for. But I think this is a guy that in the right lineup, in the right culture, and I actually, again, I do think getting him over to Seattle might be more beneficial to his style of play. That is an ad that will not be cheap. You're definitely talking about one of your probably top 7 prospects is the starting point, if not top 5, just because of name alone. And it's that question: do you think he's closer to the player he was last year or to the player he is now? I think he's somewhere in the middle, which could be your 5th or 6th hitter on a World Series caliber team. That's what I do believe he could provide. I'm a big fan of him. I really like the energy he brings. I would be interested in making that deal. And then the other name gets traded almost every year, Aroldis Chapman. We're talking about this bullpen. We're asking a lot out of Carlos Vargas, Bazardo, Spear. Obviously, Brash is clearly not healthy. He's been good, but like, it's just probably something we're going to have to be careful with him all year, to be honest.
He's living with that slider now. He's not getting guys out. We're not seeing triple digits anymore. He's not getting guys out with the fastball.
And so that's where I would love to bring in a guy like Chapman, and nobody talks about him because of some of the domestic violence stuff, which is very fair to bring up. This is a guy that has won World Series, has been on World Series teams, has been in a lot of playoff games, and despite his age, he is still just an absolute flamethrower, and his numbers right now look insane. Arguably one of the best relievers in all of baseball. Again, does he fit the culture of your clubhouse? Is that a personality you want to bring in? But you bring him in, I think you have the best 1-2 punch in baseball from the 8th and 9th inning. And you and I have talked about this before. When you have a chance to make a game a 7-inning game or even a 6-inning game because you just have your 3 or your 4 horsemen in the bullpen that are going to just absolutely shut it down. It just changes the way that you can manage a ball game, and it changes the way you can manage a series with your starters because you just really need them to go 5 or 6 innings.
Yeah, and the money shouldn't be an issue. I mean, he's making 10.75 this year on a 1-year deal, so a little less than
half of that.
Be about $5 million to get through the rest of the season. We've heard Mariners ownership is willing to bump payroll at the deadline, but I would think most of that would come in the form of a bat. But yeah, if you can do that, I don't necessarily think the off the field stuff would be a big issue in this case because 2 reasons. One, it's been a while, right? Yep. Those things, the more time that goes by, obviously those things can calm down. A guy behaves himself, whatever, puts it farther in the rearview mirror. The second thing is he's not signed beyond this year. You would literally just be renting this guy to try to lock down a playoff spot and succeed in the playoffs on some level, and that would be it. And it'd be a different story if he's on a 4-year deal and it's big time money. But yeah, he's found himself again, a .79 whip. He's got 50 strikeouts and 34 innings pitched, 1.32 ERA. He's been really, really good.
He mowed us down when they got their win against us. He looked unhittable.
Yeah. Another guy, and it's funny, all these guys we talk about, have a history of being connected to the Mariners. But this might be the best opportunity and the one that makes the most sense in regards to acquiring Brandon Lau from the Tampa Bay Rays. It was a huge topic conversation for probably the last 3 off seasons that he would make so much sense for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah,
Mariners have a need at second base, but he can play elsewhere.
Versatility.
If you're playing Cole Young every day, you can play some first. You can play a corner outfield as well, and then obviously there's the DH spot. But it was the injuries that made him such a mystery and made it hard to commit to him before. When he's healthy, he freaking hits, and he hits with power. But the story of his career is really good production stifled by those injury issues. I did something here. I figured out, kind of went back. It's hard to find. The last time you have to go back to 2021 to find a full-time season for him. He played 149 games in 2021. The last 2 years have been better, but still not without their injury issues. 107 games and 109 games. In his 8-year career, he has averaged 86 games per season. but he also has a career slash line of 250, 329, 812. We've seen the potential in 2021 when he did play 149 games. He had 39 home runs. If you take his statistical performance in his career and extrapolate it out into 162 game seasons, his average production over a full season is 34 home runs and 97 RBIs when he's healthy.
Yeah.
He's about to turn 31 in a couple of days. He's not a pure rental. He's only making 10.5 this year. I was surprised by that. So he'd be about $5 million for the rest of the season as well. And there's a club option for next year that if you think he fits, there's a $500,000 buyout. But the option's at 11.5 million. It could even be a guy that if you want to get some value back, you could pick up the option and trade him next year if he doesn't fit. But I think right now he's healthy and he's performing and he's playing well and he can play a couple different positions. And Tampa Bay likes to trade guys when they're in this situation, right? And they'll take low-level minor leaguers in exchange for a guy like this because they always have their eye on the future. That's just the way they operate, which is one of the reasons they've had such a long trade history with Jerry Dipoto.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? Obviously, the Mariners should want him. The fan base should be excited about having a player like him. When he's healthy, he is an all-star. Like, that is his potential. Like that, you said it with that slash line. The question is, does Tampa want to move him now, or are they going to wait until the winter and draw up the most value possible? Which, as you said, that's not exactly the way Tampa always runs. They will gladly take 4 lottery tickets than one good prospect in a lottery ticket. Like, that's just how they believe in themselves. They believe in that style of asset acquisition. And obviously the history has shown over the last, what is it, since 2008, since they've been good. I mean, you're nearing 20 years of very good Tampa Bay baseball. And again, Tampa Bay baseball. And you're seeing it again this year, right? Like, they're right on the Yankees, heels. They're nipping at it, playing in the Yankees AAA ballpark, which I don't think that gets enough talk about or enough credit of, like, what if the Rays steal the AL East from the Yankees from George Steinbrenner Field? Would just be the most, like, poetic and ironic thing ever. Baseball is even talking about having them play their playoff games at a different stadium just so they can actually, like, provide what's needed to present that and have fans go to that. Like, it's the most Tampa Bay Ray thing ever, right? Like, just MacGyvering it, absolutely, and being one of the probably 6 or 7 most consistent and best, organizations in baseball for the last 20 years. So that's that question. You're so close to the AL East, you're so close to that division title. I have a hard time seeing them move off of Lau. But again, the Rays think differently. Like you said, they've got galaxy brain. They think honestly, the great way to put this, and you nailed it, they think 6 months ahead of everyone else, right? Like, they're like, hey, we feel good about making the playoffs, so we're going to move Lau now, and we're just going to hope we still make the playoffs, and we'll get all these prospects. Whereas we're all like, oh my gosh, we're close. We need to go trade for 3 prospects. We need to go get Chapman, and we need to go get Nootbaar. We need to go get, Suarez. It's just a very different style. They're very comfortable in their own skin and comfortable with what they do, and it's very admirable. If he's on the market, I would definitely be more than happy to pay, $1.25 overpriced to get that kind of guy if he's healthy.
Well, and that's why I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to move him this month.
Yep.
Because he's got the injury history. There's probably been times throughout his career in Tampa Bay where they would have been open to moving him, but they were never going to get full value because he was coming off an injury season. So he's healthy. He's playing well. He's got the $11.5 million option next year. They may not want to pay that. And, teams have to overpay, usually have to pay more than a dollar on the dollar at the deadline versus the off season. So in the off season, it's a better time to buy. That's why if the Mariners really want to go after like a young, big, impactful bat that's going to cost them some of their top prospects, you make those deals in the off season, ideally, because you're not overpaying. But from the Tampa Bay Rays viewpoint, well, shoot, that's an opportunity. I think if they're looking at it from their standpoint of we can get this, we're never going to get more for Brandon Lau than we are right now.
Yes. No, it makes a lot of sense. And like you said, they've probably got a few guys waiting to come up that are probably going to be able to make up a Brandon Lau for them as well. And that just happens to be what goes into having a great farm system. You're allowed to make these trades and not worry about it. And Seattle hasn't gotten quite to that point yet, obviously. But again, a Brandon Lau, the versatility, I can't think of a better fit without breaking the bank. Like I think Eugenio Suarez is probably going to cost something that's going to be painful simply because he's an all-star. He's going to be an all-star. And I know it's the last year of his deal, but I think a lot of people are going to want him because they know what they're going to get from him. Lau might scare a few teams off, and that club option is very enticing. But what's on the other side of it, if you accept it, that eliminates half the teams in baseball that can't make that payment or can't do that. And again, it goes back to ownership. Are you willing to make that deal for a guy that is a borderline all-star when he's healthy? And again, it's just a two-way street. But man, if he was available and you could get him, I feel like that would be the most underrated deal of the trade deadline.
Yeah. Let's talk draft, because now we're just 2 weeks away from this thing, right? The Mariners again with the third pick, the luck of the draw in the draft lottery. And then they also have that competitive balance pick that they picked up at 35. So they have more draft resources than any team in baseball. It's an interesting draft. I feel like this happens all the time. 6 months ago, I felt like I was reading about how good this draft was going to be, right? Mm-hmm. Highlighted at the top by Ethan Holiday. And then time goes by, and obviously the profiles change. These kids get in their senior year in high school, and they grow, they develop, or they don't, they regress. And then in college, the same thing. And here we are 2 weeks away now. Ethan Holiday is not even the first pick anymore. He's fallen out of the top 5 in a lot of mock drafts.
I know.
And now we're hearing, well, it's not really great at the top, but there is a lot of depth to this class. You and I have talked a lot about the primary suspects for number 3, but a new mock draft came out today on ESPN that you sent to me. And this one, it's Kylie McDaniel and
Jeff Passan.
And those guys are as tied in as anyone.
Oh yeah.
And they don't just do their mocks. They always make a point to point this out, that it's not just pure speculation. They also factor in what they're hearing from around the league and their sources around the league. And right now, we've kind of come full circle now, where they've got the top 3 picks being the 3 college arms. They actually have Cade Anderson, the guy we both wanted to get to 3, but we didn't think he was going to get past 2. Well, now it sounds like he might go. There's a lot of momentum for him going number 1 overall to the Nationals. And then Liam Doyle, Tennessee, number 2. These are all left-handers, by the way. This is very, very strange. It'd be interesting to go back. I would imagine this has never happened before. 3
straight lefties going 1. Yeah.
And then they have the Mariners taking Jamie Arnold, who, some fans might think, well, shoot, we get the 3rd best college left-hander. But until Liam Doyle's College World Series performance and until Cade Anderson's College World Series performance, like, Arnold was generally considered to be the best of those prospects, right? And this is what Kylie McDaniel said, or this is what Jeff Passan said. As things stand, the 3 lefties going in the top 3 picks is the single most likely outcome at the top of the draft. So this is chalk. If it works out this way, are you happy with Jamie Arnold?
Yeah, I am. I've been pretty, adamant with you. I'd be happy with all 3 of those starters. I think they all have their pros and their things that they're going to have to work on. But I think that it's going to be hard pressed to find a better addition, and I don't want to say a safer addition, but like a quick to the majors, immediate number 3 or number 4 pitcher that can develop into an ace with all 3 of those guys. They, like I said, they each have their quirks. And I think I've been pretty adamant or pretty vocal with you. Jamie Arnold's been my number 1 of those 3 guys. So I would love that. I think Jamie was the one. He was the star quarterback that got talked about in August and September. And by November and December, 2 other guys won the Heisman, and the other guys on the cover of EA Sports. And those guys are going to go number 1 and number 2. And the guy that all summer everyone thought was going to be number 1, he ends up going 4 or 5, or in this case 3. And sometimes maybe you do get the best guy, and now you get him in a better situation. I would believe, compared to all 3 of those pitchers, they would all prefer to end up in Seattle in terms of development for their game and stuff. Because if any of those three get drafted by the Angels, they're probably going to be seeing some starts in September. And considering what all three of those have gone through this year and the amount of innings and pitches that they've thrown in each in their own way, they definitely need to take some time and get ready. I do believe all three of those guys will be on the major league roster at some point next season. Like they are all ready to go in that sense. Health wise, everything shows up good and everything goes good in their development. But like, I think those are guys you're looking at. If you're in contention in September or even August, you're going to see them. Of those three, Jamie Arnold is actually the most likely, in my opinion, to be ready to go earlier and stuff. And so I'm big on Jamie Arnold. All the comps, you've seen it. It's a little bit more of a thicker version of Chris Sale, the way he throws. The way Chris Sale throws terrifies me every time he throws the ball. And I think it also terrifies hitters every time he throws the ball because he can hit 98 as a lefty with that 3/4 sidearm release. And then he has that snapping slider that just looks like the bottom just slides out, or he's about to take out a righty's hands or their legs, but they still swing anyways. He is definitely kind of a 2-pitch guy, so he needs to develop a third pitch that's more consistent. But his 2 pitches, I think, are on par as better as anybody else's in this draft.
All he has to do is spend some time around Logan Gilbert, and he'll teach him one of
there you go.
one exactly. of his 9 pitches that he throws or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's where I've come to as well, and I've settled on a preference for one of the college arms, whichever the best of the 3 is available there, for a bunch of reasons. I think, first of all, it gives you an opportunity, I think, to maybe save a little bit of slot money that maybe at 35 you can get creative and you can catch a high schooler who's threatened to go back to college or whatever. Because even though it's not like these guys are senior signs, but when you're talking a college arm and the way these college baseball coaches run their pitch counts up, we saw what Cade Anderson did in the college.
Yeah.
Like whoever drafts him this year, even the Angels, as much as we want to joke about them, probably shutting him down.
You would hope so.
Until the winter. It's none of them are going to have the leverage to go back to school because you're a top 3 pick. You want to risk going back to school and having Tommy John blowing your arm out, or just having an off year again or whatever, and tumbling down out of the top 10 and you lose $4 million. I think the leverage is all with the club, and that allows you that flexibility. Plus, it is there's 2 big holes in the Mariners farm system as far as I'm concerned. One is third base. We've talked about that a lot. There isn't like a legitimate, for sure, third baseman that projects as a major leaguer. Maybe one of the middle infielders moves over there at some point because we have so many of them. But that's not ever a given either. And they haven't begun that process with any of them. None of them are taking ground balls or anything or doing any work at third base. So that's a hole. And then left-handed starting pitcher is another one. Like, my goodness, you look at our rotation now, even when it's healthy with those 5 young guys, even the guys helping out, right? The 4A guys, Logan Evans and Emerson Hancock, right-handed. The 2
righty, yeah.
Picks from last year, Drangelo Sencha, mostly righty. And Ryan
he'll probably become a righty, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So it just would be nice to balance that out with the left-hander, give teams a little bit of a different look. And also, I like the timeline, as you said. If he is a guy that might be able to come up and debut second half of 2026, gives you some flexibility at a time when I think that flexibility is going to be really valuable. We don't know what the future holds for Bryce Miller, what's going on there. If that is just a simple cleanup with the bone spur, like they say. We don't know. Luis Castillo's no trade clause lapses after this year at a dollar figure that I think would be really attractive to some teams that are looking for a top of the rotation guy. He could have a ton of value this offseason as they search to maybe trade for another long-term offensive answer. So from that standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of scenarios still out there. Joe Doyle said on a podcast last week that he thinks there's 8 guys that the Mariners are doing deep work on, college, high school pitchers, hitters. So I don't even think they know yet. But yeah, I favor one of the college arms. It just makes the most sense.
No, for sure. And like I said, I have my preferential treatment to Arnold. But if you told me they took Doyle or Cade Anderson, which we should just be honest, Cade Anderson's not falling to 3. Like, he's just not. But if Doyle was the pick at 3, I wouldn't be upset about it. Another electric guy that can hit 100, was the best pitcher in baseball up until the SEC tournament, and then he kind of started to fade a little bit there and stuff. But again, everything looks just absolutely special from there. I still would love a hitter. I just, again, like you nailed it. Like I'd love to get a hitter, but it just might not. I just don't know if that's the way this pick fitting that spot, right? If you're at 5 or 6 or 7, I think Holiday and Arquette out of Oregon State really fit that mold. And again, I think this also has a lot to say about just the lack of star quality college bats in the early levels of this draft, where it just doesn't make a lot of sense to go that route.
One. Yeah.
Right.
But then our boy Jace just didn't have as good a year.
Yeah, and that really probably affects a lot of this whole thing, because if he is the guy we thought, he probably goes number 1, or now him and Kate are battling, and it just kind of bumps everything down. Again, this is the benefit of being in 3. There's a clear 3 special lefties that you can get, and there's 2 bats that, if the Mariners love them, they're very marketable, or they're quick to come up and they look like they can play third base. And so again, I feel like I've said this for a couple weeks. Holiday would be really exciting because it's just the name, it's the star power that comes with it. It would definitely create a new thing with the Mariners. But I think at this moment in time, if you can just nail down one of those 3 lefties and don't complicate it, you're setting yourself up for immediate impact in 2026.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was just looking at the prospect list here again. There is still a lot of talk also about the high school middle infielders, right? And there's a lot of talk about Eli Willis, and of those 8 names that Joe Doyle talked about, Eli Willis, Billy Carlson, another high school shortstop, and JoJo Parker are the 3. And then I think it was Kylie McDaniel who 2 weeks ago also piggybacked on that and said, he's hearing the Mariners really like JoJo Parker, which is the first time I'd heard that name at all. So it could go.
Seth Hernandez is another high school name. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one that Jason Churchill today was saying that he's been told by a couple people with other organizations that they're hearing a lot of the Mariners just really like Seth Hernandez.
Yeah. And he's their classic righty. A flamethrower, throw strikes at the high school level. And if they're feeling comfortable about their organization and they can wait a little bit longer and they want to go under slot, that's definitely the pick that could be there if they still want to go pitcher at 3. But again, me as a fan, please don't complicate it. Take one of the 3 pitchers unless you love Arquette or Holiday. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of where I'm sticking my flag and playing it, is if you take any of those 5, I have no problem with it. I prefer the pitchers, but I have no problem. If you go outside that realm, I just feel like you're getting a little bit cute, and you're leaving a lot of variables for things to go wrong.
So we talked last week about some prospect promotions. Obviously, Laz Montes and Michael Arroyo going up to AA. What a week for both of them. I mean, they both had doubles in their debuts. They both got their first minor league home run in their second game. Laz in 6 games at Arkansas seems like a pretty easy transition for him so far, hitting 261 with an 1100 OPS. He's already got 2 doubles, 3 home runs, including one that was 445 feet off the bat. He's driven in 7 runs. And this is the most encouraging thing to me, making the leap from single A, from high A to AA, 6 walks to 6 strikeouts. He's seeing the ball, obviously tiny sample size, but he's seeing the ball really, really well. And of those 2 prospects, I think we talked about it a little bit last week, I have consistently heard from analysts that Arroyo's ready for this promotion, might be a little aggressive with Montes. I'd like to see a little more development out of him, but my goodness, does he seem comfortable in AA so far?
Doesn't he look the part too? Doesn't he just look like he's bigger and faster and stronger than everyone else out there in AA? And it just goes back to, I've heard from a few people that have said, once you're in AA, you're just a phone call away, because the pitching and the type of players that you're going against in AA, that's where the stars really get to cook and develop before they get called up. And I don't think we'll see him this season, but if he keeps hitting the way he's hitting, he's going to force the issue. Right? Like, the talent is there, undeniable. Obviously, I would love to see him finish the year in AA, and let's see what happens in spring training, right? Because it's early. and he's definitely not on the same ascent as Julio Rodriguez, but it does feel a little similar, man. He just feels like a man, looks like a man among boys. And he looked that way in Everett, and now he looks that way early on. Now let's see what teams do to counter what they've seen so far, and then he's got to counter that, and vice versa. Like I'm excited to see what his ability to battle with the changes, because it's going to happen. You can't keep hitting like that. The pitching staffs in Double A, they're going to adjust to what you're doing and stuff. But right now, again, we make the jokes, but the baby Jordan stuff, when he makes contact from that left-hand side, it's violent. It's so violent, and that ball just flies and flies. Like, that looked like 540 feet and stuff. And you can see those outfielders did the half-ass jog of like, oh, I'll pretend I'm going after it, but they didn't have to move. He looks good in the outfield so far from what I've seen. He tried to do that fake catch thing to trick a runner. I saw a video of that where it's just so encouraging to see an Arroyo continuing to get on base like we talked about last week. It's just everything that you want to see. These guys are moving up and they're continuing to develop. But this is even beyond my wildest dreams of seeing what Montes could have done to start Double A.
Now, and that's where I do want to caution people about this start, right? So I think there was a method to the Mariners' madness of when to call these guys up. They were playing in Amarillo at a ballpark called Hodgetown. And I had a hunch about this. I looked it up the other night when he hit that big bomb, and I was right. Hodgetown sits at over 3,600 square feet above sea level, making it the most elevated Double-A ballpark in the country. That means the air is thinner, reducing drag on the ball. The park also experiences significant wind, often blowing out of the south, particularly benefiting balls hit to right field. Conversely, John Thurman Field, where the Arkansas Travelers play their home games, is a notorious pitcher's park and a tough ballpark to hit in. It has deep dimensions, particularly in the gaps, making it difficult for balls to carry out for home runs. And then there's a little blurb here about how that's not the norm in the California League, that most of the ballparks down there are hitter friendly. So I do think it'll be really telling to watch over a little bit more of a sample size, maybe when he gets to 20, 30 games at John Thurman Field, see how he hits there in a tough that's traditionally tough. But that can tell you a lot about a player too and how ready he is. I remember when Kyle Lewis was in Double A, and looked like the knee was healthy, but the numbers just weren't there. Even when they promoted him the first time, like the numbers didn't seem to be there at Double A. I think the park factor was taken into account, and how guys deal with that, right? Does it frustrate him? Does it get him out of their routine? Do they change their approach at all? I think there's something to be said for that kind of challenge as well. There's another guy though that got promoted this week from Double A to Tacoma. So now just obviously one step away from the major leagues, that honestly, I'd heard about ever since he was signed as an international free agent years ago out of Cuba. I'd kind of forgotten about him. I kind of thought he was just going to be just another guy, just one of those prospects that just, ends up playing at AAA for 5 years and then becomes a minor league free agent. But that's Victor Labrada. And he gets promoted, played his first game at Tacoma last night. He's 25 years old now. So his development arc has taken longer, right? He's been in the organization for 7 years. Small guy, 5'8", 195, lefty hitting outfielder, can play all three spots in the outfield. Career slash line 270, 362, 405. He does have a little bit of pop. He's at a 12 homer year. He's at a 10 homer year. This year across two levels now, right? He's hitting almost 300, almost a 1-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio. And he's a guy that can steal some bases. Is he a legit prospect that you think has a major league career? Or is this Jonathan Clase 2.0? Because those are the vibes I'm getting.
That was the exact thing I was going to ask you was, is this just more of a more mature, more veteran Jonathan Clase, right? And through 67 games in Double A, the numbers look great. They really do. And again, like you said, he's got a little bit of pop, but this is definitely a guy that's you just want to get him on base somehow, shape or form. Good defense, great speed. And again, just a unique story. I believe he signed, like you said, signed at kind of a later age than most people normally sign on and join the minor league systems. And again, it's not normal that you see a 25-year-old, but has been fantastic. I believe he won minor league player of the week right before he got promoted, if I'm correct, and stuff. And last night you saw in his first at bat or his first hit of the game, uh, kind of seemed like a moderately routine, a little bit up the middle ground ball, and there was a little bit of a shift in the shortstop, and he beat it out. And like it was one of those plays where it's like, oh, okay, this guy has plus speed. Keep hitting well, keep seeing the ball, keep playing good defense, be ready. And if Victor Robles isn't ready to go, this is absolutely a guy that you could see getting called up in September just for depth, just for defense, just for speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, pitch running, like those are the guys. People forget the rosters have more expansion than normal in September, and the playoffs expand. And so obviously a stolen base might mean the difference between winning a series and losing a series in the regular season and the playoffs. And if you have a guy that can get you that bag, for sure, go get it and stuff. And but credit to him, an amazing first 67 games. I'm very interested to see what he does for the next 30 games or so in Tacoma, and how does he play in Seattle, in Tacoma. How does he do? You never know, because like we said, we'd love for Dominic Canzone to keep being this. We'd love for Luke Raley to stay healthy. We'd love to have Victor Robles come back. All three of those things are probably at best, you're probably getting two of those three right. Probably right, like that at best. There's a real chance all three of those guys turn out to be kind of pumpkins this year. If they're all great and they're all healthy, then that's awesome, and that's where you need to have a guy like him that can come in and maybe play 15 games this year and help you win 3 or 4 of them.
Probably not a regular down the road, but it's. I'm always intrigued by guys whose minor league careers get off to rough starts and then they find something and put themselves on the radar. And you make a good point about more mature Jonathan Clase. I forgot how young he was throughout his ascension and how quickly he moved up to Double-A, and at a young age. Still just 23 now in his second year in the Toronto organization.
Toronto, right? Yeah.
33 games, 110 plate appearances at the big league level this year, hitting 204. But another cautionary tale where I know there were a lot of the fan base back in 2024 before the trade thought that kid should be called up and stuck in the starting lineup and playing every day because he was tearing up minor league baseball. It's been a tough transition for him trying to make it the jump to the majors with Toronto. One other little footnote that I noticed this week that I was really excited about is Hunter Cranton finally has started his rehabilitation process, and he's just down at the Arizona facility now. But I think if things continue to go well there, he'll probably jump straight to Arkansas or maybe even Tacoma. Yeah. If you don't know who Hunter Cranton is, he was the Mariners' 3rd rounder last year. He was a senior sign out of the University of Kansas. So one of the guys that allowed them to go over slot to get a guy like Ryan Sloan, but a guy that high 90s, touches triple digits, college closer, looked like a guy when we drafted him last year. I thought they could move quickly, maybe even break camp as one of the arms this year.
Yeah.
Some injury issues. None of it's arm related. He had a very serious concussion. He got hit by a batted ball, I think.
Yeah.
Very serious concussion. It's taken him this long to come back from it. But that's just, I just thought I'd throw that out there, because this is a kid that I think if he's fully healthy and everything's behind him and there's no psychological after effects of that.
Yeah, no, it's very serious stuff.
This is a guy who was a polished, 4-pitch closer that could throw upper 90s with a really good slider. Like, I could see him contributing in September if he's healthy. He could be a factor this year.
Yeah, like you said, concussions are super serious, even in baseball. In everyday life, it's just not something you want to mess with. And hopefully he's healthy and now ready to get going, because he was I don't want to say he was the Ben Williamson pitching wise, comp of a guy that could move up really quick. But again, like you said, this is a guy that's going to be your 7th or 8th or possibly even a closer down the road. And he's not necessarily the crazy flamethrower that we have with a Munoz, but kind of like your old throwback closer type of a guy that's just going to outwit you. He's got everything in the bag that he can throw at you to, get that ground ball, get that fly ball out. A guy that, like you said, if he's healthy, I'd love to see him in Arkansas right away. And who knows if he really is healthy and ready to go. And again, like you said, there's nothing arm related. It's just making sure he's okay mentally and, everything that goes with the concussion, as serious as that. This is a guy we could see very, very quickly. And like I said, this bullpen really needs some more ammunition, needs more meat, needs more help.
Yeah, 2 appearances so far, 2 innings, 1 hit, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Not a bad
Love it.
Not a bad start for a guy who hasn't thrown much. Whoops. Hit that button a little bit too hard. That's going to do
Can I just make a note really quick?
Yeah.
Cal Raleigh, I believe, just hit another home run.
He did. I meant to mention that earlier. I actually saw it on my phone as it happened. It gave them their 6th run. The Mariners have now closed that game down. I think they won 6-2 to start the homestand on the right foot. But yeah, I was going to mention Cal because his first legit slump maybe of the year.
Yeah. A whole 3 games, right? Yeah.
He hadn't had a home run all week. He'd gone 7 games without a home run.
For 7 games,
and then he got one to straightaway center tonight. So hopefully that will get him going again. We need Cal Raleigh to continue hitting home runs. So
absolutely.
Yeah, glad you threw that in there. I'm Dan. That's Michael. Let me get this banner out of here. So if you can see it, the Twitter handle, follow us there at Mariners_4ever. Subscribe to the channel if you would, please. Help us get to 100 subscribers, at least, little baby steps, and start to go from there. Next week, what do you say we take a good hard look, maybe do a 3 or 4 pick mock draft for the Mariners, as we'll be just a week away from the draft. And then I've got an idea for the draft as well that I'm going to talk to you after we stop recording here. So, good to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody, or listening, whichever podcast platform you listen on. Give us a follow or a subscription there. And if you like what we do, hit that thumbs up and give us a rating as well. We'll see you next week, man. Forever and always.
Yeah.
Go M's.
Go Nerds.